there's a concept that I came up with called the 3 M's of adventure context. um, and those are like, how do you set up the lore of your world and like establishing what the overarching larger problem is. And this could be for an adventure, it could be for a campaign setting, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. But like using the 3 M's, and those are whatever happened a millennia ago, what happened months ago, and what happened moments ago. And by having like, some sort of distant epic past event that occurred, and then having that as a frame for, well, now this new thing is happening a few months ago, and now this really dramatic event happened just moments ago, and all of those have like a timeline through line that connects them together. Now you, like, within 3 sentences, 3 questions asked, you have all the context you need for, okay, now we know how all of these other factions in our game world are going to react to this calamity event, whatever calamity event that is.
Those are great points. And if we were to take just what we've talked about in this one sit down, right? A millennia ago, the city was burned to the ground, and you've got these 2 religious factions who have built themselves up since that time, right? And there's your religious conflict. And then
Right.
a month ago, this cult formed, and then a moment ago, you just found a magic sword, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And like everybody's looking for this magic sword, you know. And then like establishing kind of a distant timeline, like within so many months, this thing has to happen. I think Fallout does a really good job of this.
Oh yeah,
Um, the Fallout 1, like you start as like you get the intro video, which is, China invades Alaska, the US annexes Canada, and the European Commonwealth dissolves into a bunch of quarreling, bickering nation states hell bent on controlling the last remaining resources on Earth. I'm pretty sure I quoted that word for word. Like you get that's what happened the millennia ago. And then you get the intro of our water chip just ran out and we got to figure out what's going on. And now you just have go get water chip because water chip broke. Like it's the most basic, simple go on this quest because we have this really basic problem we need solved. And it thrusts you into why is all this stuff happening out in the world? you know?
no,
So
that's a great point, because that illustrates like your idea of start small, start simple, right? Go get
right,
the water chip. But then once
right,
you're out in the world, then you're running into these other conflicts and encountering other
right.
stories that'll lead to the greater adventure, right?
Exactly.
So with all that said, like the idea, like
Sure.
we build this stuff, we create space for adventure, and then how do you connect it to the players? Like how do you draw the
Mm.
players in?
That's a good one. Usually, the players are when they first start a campaign, they are desperately looking for anything to latch onto because, there's a huge disparity in the information space here. Like you have all the information as the dungeon master in your brain, and there are 3 to 5, maybe 9 players at your table that have no information about what's going on in the world.
Right.
So, if you can present them with a dramatic problem right out of the gate, usually, especially if there's like multiple appeals, like, oh, my sister got kidnapped, so you've got, suffering family, and I'll pay you 100 gold if you can go find her. And also, she got taken to this treasure where I think there's magic items. You can keep whatever is there. Treasure, gold, appeal to morality. Like if you get all of the 3 appeals right out of the gate, you're great. Usually, that's what I would do as like a first quest.
Hmm.
It's very seldom that I would like involve a character's backstory right out of the gate because all of a sudden it puts the spotlight too much on that character.
That's a good point.
When everyone else is just trying to get footing. A adventure where there's a clear like triple entendre of appeals, various kinds of appeals that would be interesting to your players, whatever those are.
Hmm.
Send them on a quest that's pretty straightforward with a strict time limit, like go do the thing or something bad happens in 2 hours, right? Like go rescue my sister before she gets sacrificed by this cult, please, dear God, help. Or while they're solving that problem, that's when you start breadcrumbing in other information about the game world.
Hmm.
So, and like start adding in unresolved questions. So now you start thinking about like, okay, what are the little breadcrumbs of faction strife that I can take from one part of the game world and drop over here? You know, is there a magic item that the players will bump into that is just curious and has a dead body and a note next to it and is written from one person to another person? They don't know who the people are yet, but people they may bump into will know who it is and they can have a very strange reaction. Like, do you know who this Roderick the Ranger is and why he was writing a letter? It looks like it wasn't finished. Do you know, dear Roderick the Ranger? Like, we found this bow. It doesn't look magical, but it's got this weird carving in it. Do you know anything about this? As they take it to the weaponsmith, and like the weaponsmith rushes to the door, closes it up, and tells the players, "You should leave. You shouldn't be here with that. I'm going to pretend that you weren't talking about this." Now all of a sudden it's like, "Oh gosh, what is going on?"
Yeah, there's a
So now
mystery. Yeah.
it's a mystery. So now it's like, okay, we need to go figure out, go find a scribe, or go find like a library that has documentation on the symbology. Like, we need to find who's Rogic the Ranger, and so you get into some interesting curiosities when you do that. But right out of the gate, just give your players something easy to chew on.
Right. Yeah. Just give them that straightforward. Here are the bad guys. Here are the good guys.
Right,
Uh,
right.
but then you
Use
can
the
complicate
first
it later.
adventure. Yeah, use the first adventure to provide mysteries to the world. Like, do your world building in the adventure. Don't, give them an 800 word, monologue as your campaign starts.
Right. No, that's a great point, and that actually brings me to
Yeah.
the next question, which was
Okay.
like the other advice you often hear is show, don't tell. Right. So
Mhm.
if instead of like telling them a bunch of information up front, you're showing them little clues along the way during that first adventure.
Right. There is only one time that I would pivot away from tell, don't show, but
Hmm.
it's such a gimmicky thing, and the players love it when I do it. It's when the players are delving somewhere and they come across a dead body. It's almost always a dead body, or they look in a bookcase, or they look in a drawer, and I pull out from underneath the table because I had it masking taped underneath. You find this tea stained note, and then the player like, "Ooh," and then they read it to the table. And it's far more interesting when you have an in-game artifact. So
Right.
it's telling, sure, but the in-game artifact, tells the players what's going on from the perspective of the game world, not from, I'm going to expose information to you like I'm David Attenborough talking about monkeys.
That's a great reference. Um,
Right.
yeah, no, I think you're exactly right, and I've done that too. And another tip that I do is attach lore to things the players are interested in. Right, like the
Right.
most obvious one is they always want healing potions, right? And like that's a given. Your players are
Yeah.
always going to want healing potions. How are they going to get them? Well,
Right.
I often make healing potions sold at the local temple, right?
Uh-huh.
So so they go to the temple and they're going to see something about the world at the temple, right? Because the temple is an important political structure. So
Right.
there's going to be two priests arguing about dogma, or there's going to be a noble who's arguing with a priest about politics versus the clergy, right? And you
Mhm.
can just put that little scene in the church when they go to buy their healing potions because you
Right. They
know.
hear the last four exchanges as they're walking up, and then all of a sudden they get hush hush. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a little way to drop world building hints,
Right.
and they're going to go there because healing potions is something they're always going to be looking to purchase
Sure.
every time they go back to town, right?
Right. That's actually another point we can talk about, is that basically you just put whatever MacGuffins you need to put in front of your players wherever they are. It doesn't matter. They just always happen to be in the right place.
Yeah, like there's a lot of like resistance to the idea of the quantum ogre. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yeah.
But it's much easier, at least in my mind, it's much easier to forgive quantum information versus like a quantum creature, right? Because information can exist in multiple places at the same time. Like that's legit.
Sure.
Like so you
Sure.
can have the guy in the mountain pass who can give the players a note. But you can also
Right.
have a guy in the tavern if they never leave town that can give the players a note.
Right. Or if
And
they went in an entirely different direction and got on a ship, when they dock, somebody at the dock shows up and gives them the same information. Doesn't matter. Right.
right. And it doesn't have to be the same note. It's not like a quantum note, but it's the
Sure.
information, right?
Right.
Can come from
Right.
multiple sources, especially if you're using factions in your game. Because the guy in the mountains, the guy in the bar, and the guy on the docks could all be a member of the same faction trying to
Sure.
get that information to the player. So that I
Mhm.
think is far more believable and less verisimilitude breaking than like a quantum ogre, for example. So this was an excerpt from a much larger interview with Baron DeRob from Dungeon Masterpiece. Go check out his channel. But if you want to see the full and complete interview with myself and Baron DeRob, click this link here. Thanks again for visiting the Dire Den, and I'll see you next time.